This is the most important wrestling tournament of the year, and to be honest, we don't get to see much of these guys compete, maybe like 2 times a year, and you're not going to want to miss the best wrestlers in the world coming out of the United States going and taking gold. Now you can watch the Senior World Championships from September 16th to the 24th live on Flow Wrestling. So with that being said, I'm going to go talk about the lineups, talk about my picks, what I think is going to happen, and some of the storylines that I am most excited to follow. Some of them aren't even in the United States. But starting off with the men's freestyle official lineup. Now, starting off, we got Zayn Richards. So if you guys don't know, he beat Thomas Gilman, who was a world champion in a previous year, and he's almost like an underdog. So I'm really eager to see how he does on that world level. And he hit a jig after beating Gilman, so hopefully he does like a little dance if he does good. Next, we got Vito. Vito's a dog, man. He's the bro. I actually just made this funny little clip. I'll play it. But man, definitely one of the coolest, most fun wrestlers that I have to watch every time he's up. I mean, when he suplexed Nashawn Garrett in the first 5 seconds of the Final X match, like, this guy's crazy. He actually went to a ranking series earlier this year, of course, to get seeded for the World Championships, and he actually only lost 3-0, and that was his only loss. So I'm eager to see if he can make those switches, maybe mid-match adjustments, and win that match. Next up, we got Nick Lee. Now, this would pretty much be my weight. And the thing about Nick is he's very, very inexperienced, I would say, compared to most of these guys on the roster. So he beat Yanni Diakomahalis at Final X. And Yanni, he got silver at last year's World Championships. But with Nick taking 2 matches in a row from Yanni, of course, he's definitely no slouch. But at the Ranking Series tournament, he did actually get tech faulted. So unless he made some crazy adjustments, and I know every match is different, heck, I know he's training with Bo Bartlett, and Bo is the master mimicker. So if Bo can mimic his opponents the best that I can, I think Nick's going to do well. I hope. Next, we have Zane Rutherford. Now, this is actually a really exciting story for him because he only got beat 1 time from a guy from Japan who actually isn't even in the bracket. I don't know how that makes sense. Maybe he got caught up in the Squid Games, but he's actually kind of the clear favorite to win. And I mean, every single match, he's going to bust his eye open, and he's going to look like a freaking warrior. So I'm excited to see him scrap, and I'm going to predict him to take home the title. Next up, we have the multiple-time world and Olympic gold medalist, Dake. Now, this is where things get interesting, because there's been talk about what are the odds Dake actually doesn't medal this year, because there is a lot of good guys in the bracket. Now, the World Championship seeding criteria is so weird, because it's not based on past accomplishments. It's based on how you do in said tournaments and like how much points you score. That helps your seed. And you're going to see with David Taylor too. Like, David Taylor is going to win, but he's the 7th seed. But in order for Dake to reach the finals, get Olympic gold, he's actually going to have to avenge his only loss in 5 years. Now, this was to a guy named Kadi Magomedov. So, wow, I'd be scared about that Russian too. But he lost in the Olympics, I believe, to him, and then that Kadi Magomedov actually lost to Sidakov, which, if you guys are familiar to Sidakov, I know Flo's been pushing his name out a lot. Dake versus Sidakov, Dake bomb incoming. Completely forgot to add this. For some reason, it wasn't in my notes. But Marsteller taking Burrow's spot at 79 kilograms. This is very, very interesting to see if he does actually win a medal. Because if you guys don't know, Marsteller, he beat the GOAT Burrows to make the world team. Burrows was almost an automatic lock for a world medal. So for him to beat Burrows and win world championships, I think that would be the coolest single story coming out of United States wrestling if that comes to fruition. But man, I'm hoping for the best there, that, you know, Reese Humphrey pushing him into a world title. But man, Marsteller, he can have a year. Now we got one of the coolest rivalries year after year, David Taylor and Hassan Yazdani. So both those two won the past 6 world and Olympic titles in that weight class. Taylor does hold the series at 4-1, and to be honest, Hassan Yazdani, there's no way he makes that comeback. With how good that Penn State Nittany Lion room is, and I just do not see India beating him. But also in that weight is actually Miles Amin, and he's going to be wrestling for San Marino. So next up is Zaheed Valencia. Now, he's ranked 3rd in the world by Flow, and he's been kind of in his senior career, kind of going up weights, seeing where he fits in most. And if you guys don't know, he actually had a very, very razor-thin type match with Jordan Burroughs, I think about 2 years ago. But of course, he's like a lot heavier than that now, so I'm eager to see how he does at these upper weights. Next up is the wrestler who I actually have 3 pairs of his signature shoe, Kyle Snyder. Now, this is a big rivalry because it's between Snyder and Sadulayev. Such a cool name. But last year, they didn't wrestle in 2022, and Snyder was really unchallenged. So now that Sadulayev is back in the mix, things should get interesting. Snyder won the first meeting back in 2017, but he has not beaten him since. Now we have a big topic of conversation going into heavyweight. Most of you guys would have thought we'd have Gable Steveson again, but no, Gable Steveson will not be wrestling at the World Championships. It was being taken over by Mason Paris. So basically, I believe Gable was just caught up in the WWE, and pretty much they just didn't want him to wrestle for whatever said reason. But Mason Paris is that dog. Now, he actually won a ranking series in early July, beating 2 previous world medalists and 1 Olympic medalist. And man, I wish we could see Gable wrestle again. I wonder if we saw the last of Gable on a wrestling mat. I sure hope not. Maybe he would come back for the next Olympic cycle. But man, could you imagine Mason Paris getting that call to wrestle at the World Championships and then taking gold? We're going to see how he does on that big level stage. Definitely has a great chance at medaling. Now I want to start talking about some weird kind of circumstances and storylines, and that's between the United World Wrestling not kind of allowing Russia to compete based on, all the war and politics that's going on. So they're not wrestling for Russia, these Russians. They're actually wrestling for kind of their own team. It's called the Independent Neutral Athletes Team, the AIN. Now there's 11 wrestlers that will be wrestling under this team. All have a last name ending in V. Zavar Ugev, Abasagaga Magomedov, Shamil Magomedov, Ivanji Serbavava, Sidakov, Uzmagov, Pagava, Kurba Sajulayev, Kurbavadnov. Yeah, that's wild. Now, you've probably heard me mention some other U.S. wrestlers not wrestling for the United States. They're representing kind of, their home country, or I believe that's how it works, right? But I'm going to be talking about Austin Gomez wrestling for Mexico at the World Championships. I'm so excited to see. They are moving wrestling. They're doing a lot of great things. We have Austin on the podcast. He was great, has an amazing story. Now, actually, in the next video, you're actually going to see me wrestle Austin Gomez, because when he came to Who's Number One, we were scrapping, and holy cow. Now, just looking over the women's lineup, we got Sarah Hildebrandt, Dominic Parrish, Jakara Winchester, Helen Morellis, Jennifer Page, Kayla Miracle, Macy Kilty, Emma Bruntill, Amit Allure, and Adeline Gray. Now, personally, I don't know too crazy much about women's wrestling, but I will tell you that Helen Morellis is going for her 5th gold medal. And speaking about a lot of gold, Adeline Gray is going for her 7th gold and 10th medal, which would actually tie Burroughs. Now, I mentioned Macy Kilty in the lineup, and me and Macy Kilty have some history. We've wrestled twice early middle school, and she beat me twice. One was a folk style match, one was a Greco match, actually. Got arm spin to death. But I'll tell you what, the first time I wrestled Macy Kilty, she was pinning everyone with like a 3/4 Nelson in the bracket. But guess what? I was the only one she didn't pin. She just majored me. So you can see if Macy will win her first World Championships and all of the Senior World Championships on Flow Wrestling from September 16th to the 24th. Now, Amit Allure is 19 years old, so 2 years older than me. Last year, she won the U20, U23, and Senior World Championships. And this year, she already won the U20s, and she's going for her 2nd World Championship. She's on track to being a GOAT. And now her boyfriend actually is really well known, I believe, in the jiu-jitsu community. So it's kind of crazy how that works, but Amit Allure, if you want to be on the podcast, let's do it. Overall, I'm very hyped to watch the World Championships. USA Wrestling has been in that trajectory for some time now, and I am very, very eager to see who wins these close rivalries and how good USA Wrestling actually is. So like I said, if you guys do want to watch this live, you can watch all the Senior World Championships on Flow Wrestling from September 16th to the 24th. I'll put the schedule up here about when the guys are wrestling, so you guys have a great idea. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed. Shout out to the patrons, and we'll see you guys next video.
Let me know if you're on skate. Rolling with a gang. Totally, man, you shade. Told it with a gang.